Hello there, and welcome to Calm Science. Take a moment now to find a comfortable position, one where your body feels supported and at ease. Allow your attention to settle inward, noticing the simple rhythm of your breath. There's no need to change it, just let it flow at its own quiet pace. The day is done, and there is nothing left for you to do but rest. The mind can be allowed to soften, the body to grow heavy. Tonight we are drifting into the world of pollinators, a realm of quiet work and intricate connections. We will explore the gentle hum of bees in a sunlit meadow, the silent flutter of a butterfly's wings, and the surprising helpers who work in the darkness of night. This is a story of co-creation, a slow dance between flower and visitor that has been unfolding for millions of years. You can let these facts drift by. There is nothing to remember, only the gentle patterns to notice as you ease your way toward sleep. Pollination is a quiet conversation between a plant and an animal. Most plants cannot move to find a mate, so they rely on helpers to carry pollen from one flower to another. This transfer is the very first step in producing seeds and fruit. It is an essential service performed by a vast network of creatures. Bees, butterflies, birds, and even bats become unwitting messengers carrying the future of a plant on their bodies. Each visit is a small act of connection, a link in a chain that supports entire ecosystems. Flowers offer a sweet reward of nectar or a protein-rich meal of pollen in return. This gentle exchange sustains both the plant and the pollinator. In this way, life creates more life in a simple repeating cycle. You can breathe a little deeper and allow the thought to drift. Flowers use colors and patterns as landing guides. To a bee or a butterfly, a flower is not just a single color. Many blossoms have patterns that are invisible to the human eye, visible only in the ultraviolet spectrum of light. These are called nectar guides. They often appear as lines, dots, or rings that point directly to the center of the flower, where the nectar is found. It's like a secret runway, guiding the pollinator to the precise spot where it will brush against the pollen. These patterns make foraging more efficient, saving the pollinator precious energy. They ensure the visitor arrives at the right place to complete the task of pollination. Elsewhere in this picture, the plant world is filled with these silent invitations written in a language of light. Hold the shape of that thought lightly and return to ease. Not all pollination happens during the day. As the sun sets and the air cools, a different shift of pollinators begins its work. Moths and bats take to the night sky, visiting flowers that open only in the darkness. These night-blooming flowers are often pale white or light green, making them easier to see in the moonlight. Instead of bright colors, they use strong, sweet fragrances to attract their visitors from afar. The scent of jasmine, honeysuckle, or night-blooming cereus drifts on the cool air, a fragrant beacon in the dark. Moths hover like ghosts, sipping nectar with their long tongues, while nectar-feeding bats travel miles to find their favored blossoms. In quieter hours, a whole other world of pollination unfolds beneath the moon and stars. Let the body grow heavier as the mind stays simple. Bees are the most famous pollinators for a reason. They have special features that make them exceptionally good at their job. Many bees, like the bumblebee, are covered in fuzzy, branched hairs that act like dust collectors for pollen. As a bee moves from flower to flower, pollen grains cling to its body. Some bees have even more specialized structures. Honeybees and bumblebees have stiff, bristle-like hairs on their hind legs that form a pollen basket, called a corbicula. They use their other legs to groom the pollen from their bodies and pack it neatly into these baskets for the journey home. This allows them to carry an enormous amount of pollen at once. With simple patience, the bee gathers what it needs, serving the flowers as it goes. Let that settle like dust on a quiet floor. Buzz pollination is a special technique used by some bees. Certain flowers, like those of tomatoes, potatoes, and blueberries, hold their pollen tightly inside long, tube-like anthers. They do not release it easily. Bumblebees and some solitary bees have learned a clever trick to get it out. They land on the flower, grab onto it with their legs, and rapidly contract their flight muscles without moving their wings. This creates a powerful vibration, a high-frequency buzz that travels through the flower, shaking the pollen loose. It is like a tiny, living tuning fork, vibrating at the perfect frequency to unlock the flower's treasure. Up close, you could almost hear the hum of this tiny, energetic transfer. Return to the easy rhythm of your breath. Butterflies taste with their feet. When a butterfly lands on a flower, it is not just resting. Its feet are covered in chemoreceptors, tiny sensory organs that can detect the chemical compounds in a plant. This allows the butterfly to instantly identify if the flower is a good source of nectar, or if the plant is the right kind for laying its eggs. For many butterfly species, their caterpillars can only eat one or a few specific types of host plants. By tasting the leaves with her feet, a female butterfly ensures her offspring will have the food they need to survive. It is a delicate and precise sense of touch, guiding her to the right place. From a distance, it looks like a dance, but it is a careful process of selection. Let the thought soften at thijas and fade. Hummingbirds and the flowers they visit have evolved together. These tiny birds are specialized nectar feeders, and they prefer flowers that match their abilities. Hummingbird-pollinated flowers are often bright red or orange colors. Birds see well, but many insects do not. They are typically shaped like long, narrow tubes, perfectly matching the hummingbird's long, slender beak. These flowers have no landing platform, as hummingbirds feed while hovering in midair. They also produce a large amount of thin, watery nectar to fuel the bird's incredibly high metabolism. This close partnership is a beautiful example of coevolution, where the bird and the flower have shaped each other over millions of years. Along a steady path, these relationships become more and more refined. Rest in the steady comfort of this moment. The honeybee's waggle dance is a form of silent communication. When a forager bee finds a rich source of nectar or pollen, she returns to the dark hive and performs a special dance to tell her sisters where to go. If the food is close, she performs a simple round dance. But if it is farther away, she performs the waggle dance. She walks in a straight line, waggling her abdomen vigorously, then circles around to repeat the pattern. The angle of the straight run tells the other bees the direction of the food relative to the sun. The duration of the waggle tells them how far away it is. Over time, the entire colony can learn the location of the best flowers without ever having seen them before. Set the idea down and feel the weight release. Bats are crucial pollinators in desert and tropical ecosystems. Nectar-feeding bats are responsible for pollinating over 500 species of plants, including many types of agave and cacti. The saguaro cactus, for example, opens its large, white, fragrant flowers at night, a perfect invitation for a bat. Bats have long tongues, sometimes as long as their bodies, tipped with fine bristles to lap up nectar. As they feed, their furry faces get dusted with pollen, which they then carry to the next cactus. The relationship between bats and the agave plant is so important that without them, we would have no tequila, which is made from fermented agave. In the gentle background, these nocturnal workers perform a vital service. Let your shoulders drop and the jaw unclench. Beetles are some of the world's oldest pollinators. Long before bees and butterflies existed, beetles were visiting ancient flowers like magnolias and water lilies. These flowers are often large, bowl-shaped, and sturdy, able to support the weight of a clumsy beetle. They are also typically light in color and have strong, spicy, or fruit-like scents to attract beetles from a distance. Instead of offering only nectar, these flowers provide edible pollen or special food bodies for the beetles to eat. The the beetles crawl around inside the flower, feeding and mating, and in the process become covered in pollen. While not as efficient as bees, their ancient relationship with flowers laid the groundwork for all the pollinators that followed. Beneath the surface, ancestral connections shape the world we see today. Feel the calm gather around you again. A hoverfly is a master of disguise. You might see one buzzing around a garden and mistake it for a small bee or wasp. They have similar yellow and black stripes, a form of mimicry that helps protect them from predators. But hoverflies are completely harmless. They have no stinger and are actually a type of fly. The adults are important pollinators, feeding on nectar and pollen from a wide variety of flowers, especially those with open, accessible structures. Their larvae are also beneficial, as many of them are voracious predators of garden pests like aphids. They are a quiet, gentle force in the garden, helping both with pollination and pest control. With unhurried steps, nature creates these helpful balances. Settle back into the soft pace of night. Solitary bees make up the vast majority of bee species. While we often think of bees living in large hives, about 90% of bee species are solitary. This means each female builds and provisions her own nest without the help of a queen or worker bees. There are thousands of types, including mason bees, leafcutter bees, and mining bees. They create their nests in hollow stems, tunnels in wood, or burrows in the ground. A female will lay an egg on a ball of pollen and nectar, seal it up in a cell, and then repeat the process until the nest is full. These bees are often very gentle and are extremely effective pollinators, without any hurry. They go about their quiet work, alone but essential. Allow the mind to idle in gentle space. Leafcutter bees use circles of leaves to build their nests. A female leafcutter bee will fly to a plant, often a rosebush or wisteria, and use her sharp mandibles to snip a perfect, semicircular piece from the edge of a leaf. She does this with incredible speed and precision. She then carries this piece back to her nesting tunnel, which might be in rotting wood or a hollow reed. She uses the larger pieces to line the walls of the nesting cell, and the smaller circular pieces to cap each end. The leaves act as a protective wrapping for her offspring, keeping them safe and regulating humidity. It's a beautiful hidden form of architecture, a nursery made of leaves. Through a soft lens, we can see the care in these small actions. Let the body be held by what supports you. The relationship between figs and fig wasps is one of nature's most intricate partnerships. Every species of fig tree has its own unique species of fig wasp that pollinates it. A fig is not a fruit, but an enclosed floral structure. A female wasp, already carrying pollen, enters a tiny opening in the fig to lay her eggs inside. In doing so, she pollinates the internal flowers, but her wings and antennae break off, trapping her. The wasp larvae develop inside, and when they mature, the wingless males mate with the females, then chew an escape tunnel for them. The newly emerged females collect pollen from the male flowers inside the fig and fly off to find another fig tree, repeating the cycle. As the night settles, this ancient, complex drama plays out in silence. Allow the day to fall away now. Moth antennae are incredibly sensitive scent detectors. Male moths in particular have large, feathery antennae that are exquisitely designed to pick up single molecules of a female's pheromones from the air. This allows them to locate a potential mate from miles away. Moths also use their sense of smell to find flowers in the dark. While their eyesight is good for detecting pale colors, it's the fragrance of a flower that guides them. They can distinguish between hundreds of different floral scents, often specializing in just a few. These complex antennae act like a navigation system, guiding the moth through the night on a current of scent. In a calm rhythm, they follow these invisible trails through the darkness. Rest in the quiet that follows. Not all bees make honey. Only honeybees and a few related species produce honey in large enough quantities to be harvested. Honey is essentially concentrated nectar that bees create as a long-term food source to survive the winter. Most other bees, like bumblebees and solitary bees, do not need to store food for such a long period. Bumblebee colonies only last for a single season, and solitary bees provision each egg with just enough food to last until adulthood. These bees still collect nectar for their immediate energy needs, but they do not process it into honey. Honey is a special adaptation for a specific kind of social life in a long, cold winter. In this quiet corner, each species has its own way of surviving. Let your breathing find a slower pace. Some flowers offer oil instead of nectar. In certain parts of the world, particularly in the tropics, there are flowers that produce floral oils as a reward for their pollinators. Special kinds of bees, known as oil-collecting bees, have evolved to gather these oils. They have dense pads of hair on their legs that act like tiny sponges, soaking up the oil from the flower. The female bees then use this oil to line their nests, making them waterproof. They also mix it with pollen to create a nutrient-rich food for their larvae. This unusual reward system has created a very specific and exclusive relationship between these flowers and their oily visitors. Under quiet skies, these specialized bonds form, hidden from most eyes. Feel the simple ease of being here. The monarch butterfly's migration is a multi-generational journey. No single monarch completes the entire round-trip migration from Mexico to Canada and back. It takes 4 or 5 generations to do it. The journey north in the spring involved several shorter-lived generations, each one flying a little farther, laying eggs, and then dying. The final generation, born in late summer in the northern United States and Canada, is different. This generation lives for up to 9 months and makes the entire 2,000-mile journey south to the same overwintering forests in Mexico their great-great-grandparents left. They navigate using the sun's position and the Earth's magnetic field. As the pattern repeats, this incredible relay race continues, year after year. Hold only the calm and let the rest drift. Bumblebees can control their body temperature. They are considered endothermic, meaning they can generate their own body heat. This is a rare ability among insects. On cold mornings, a bumblebee can warm up its flight muscles by shivering, allowing it to fly and forage when other insects are still too cold to move. This gives them an advantage in cooler climates and at higher elevations. To cool down, they can shunt warm blood to their abdomen, which acts like a radiator. This ability to thermoregulate allows them to be active for more hours of the day and more months of the year, making them incredibly important and resilient pollinators. With steady breath, they power through the chill of morning. A simple truth for a quiet mind. Some plants use deception to achieve pollination. The orchid family is famous for this. Many orchids mimic the appearance or scent of a female insect to trick a male into trying to mate with it. For example, the bee orchid has a petal that looks remarkably like a female bee. When a male bee lands and attempts to mate, he inadvertently picks up the orchid's pollen packet, called a pollinia. He then flies off and is fooled again by another orchid, where he deposits the pollen. The orchid offers no nectar or other reward. It relies entirely on this clever trick. In these gentle moments, we see the endless creativity of the natural world. Let that thought dissolve into stillness. Pollen grains have incredibly diverse and beautiful shapes. Under a microscope, pollen reveals itself to be a world of intricate structures. Each plant species produces a unique type of pollen. Some are perfectly spherical and covered in spikes like tiny medieval weapons. Others are triangular, box-shaped, or look like deflated soccer balls. These shapes and surface textures are not random. They help the pollen stick to the pollinator and also help it adhere to the stigma of the right flower. Scientists can identify a plant species just by looking at its pollen, a field called palynology. This is often used to study ancient climates by analyzing pollen preserved in sediment. Through the dimming light, these tiny forms tell a very large story. There is no need to hold on, just let it pass. Carpenter bees carve perfect tunnels in wood. These large, robust bees are named for their impressive woodworking skills. A female carpenter bee uses her strong mandibles to excavate a tunnel in soft, unpainted wood, such as a dead tree or a fence post. The entrance hole is a perfect circle, about the diameter of her body. She then turns at a right angle and carves a long gallery, pushing out sawdust as she goes. Inside this tunnel, she builds a series of brood cells, separated by partitions made of chewed wood pulp. Carpenter bees rarely cause serious structural damage, as they prefer to reuse old tunnels rather than dig new ones each year. On a slower current, the bee hollows out a safe home for her young. Feel the gentle pull of sleep draw nearer. The hummingbird's hover is a feat of engineering. To feed from hanging tube-shaped flowers, a hummingbird must remain stationary in the air. It achieves this by flapping its wings in a figure-8 pattern, generating lift on both the downstroke and the upstroke. Its wings can beat up to 80 times per second, so fast they become a blur. This ability to hover, fly backward, and change direction instantly gives it unparalleled access to flowers that other pollinators cannot reach. This high-energy flight is fueled by the sugary nectar it drinks, consuming up to twice its body weight in nectar each day. As you rest, this tiny engine of flight is a marvel of motion and control. The mind can be as still as a windless meadow. Some ants act as pollinators, though it happens less often. Most ants have smooth bodies that don't hold pollen well. They also secrete antibiotic substances that can damage pollen grains. However, in certain specific environments, particularly at high altitudes or on small islands where other pollinators are scarce, ants do visit flowers and transfer pollen. They are most effective on flowers that are low to the ground, with open structures and small amounts of easily accessible nectar. While they are not the superstars of the pollination world, they show how nature is full of redundancy and surprising connections. In this way, every small creature can play a part in the larger system. You can breathe a little deeper and allow the thought to drift. Birds other than hummingbirds are also important pollinators. In Australia, birds called honeyeaters are crucial for pollinating many native plants, like eucalyptus and banksia. In Africa and Asia, sunbirds fill a similar role, with their long, curved beaks perfectly suited for certain flowers. Unlike hummingbirds, these birds usually perch on a branch while they feed, rather than hovering. Their heads and chests become dusted with pollen as they drink nectar. These birds are often larger than hummingbirds and can travel longer distances, helping to spread pollen across a wider area and ensuring genetic diversity for the plant populations. Elsewhere in this picture, the world is alive with these feathered messengers. Hold the shape of that thought lightly and return to ease. Static electricity helps pollen jump from flower to bee. As a bee flies through the air, it builds up a small positive electrical charge, much like shuffling your feet on a carpet. Flowers, being grounded, tend to have a slight negative charge. When the positively charged bee gets close to the flower, the pollen, which is very light, can actually be pulled through the air and onto the bee's body before it even lands. This electrostatic force helps make the transfer of pollen incredibly efficient. It ensures that even a brief visit to a flower can result in a successful pickup of pollen. In quieter hours, invisible forces are at play, helping this gentle dance along. Let the body grow heavier as the mind stays simple. Wasps are pollinators too, though often overlooked. While their smooth bodies are less suited for carrying pollen than a bee's fuzzy coat, many wasps visit flowers to drink nectar for energy. As they feed, they can and do transfer pollen. Some plants, like the scrophularia or figwort, have flowers that seem specifically adapted for wasp pollination. They have dull, reddish-brown petals and a unique scent that is more appealing to wasps than to bees. Wasps may be famous for other reasons, but they are part of the vast and varied team of pollinators working quietly in our gardens and wild spaces. With simple patience, we can notice the contributions of even the most misunderstood creatures. Let that settle like dust on a quiet floor. The color of a flower is a signal to certain pollinators. Different animals see the world in different ways, and flowers have evolved to take advantage of this. Red and orange flowers often attract birds, like hummingbirds, who see these colors vividly. Bees, on the other hand, cannot see red well. They are more attracted to blue, purple, and yellow. Flowers that open at night are usually white or pale, making them stand out in low light for moths and bats. This color coding helps a plant attract the most effective pollinator for its specific shape and structure, and it helps pollinators find their preferred food sources more easily. Up close, this system of signals creates a beautiful and ordered landscape. Return to the easy rhythm of your breath. Some mammals are nocturnal pollinators. In places like Australia and Madagascar, certain small mammals have become important pollinators. The honey possum of Australia, for example, is a tiny marsupial with a long, brush-tipped tongue for feeding on nectar and pollen. It travels from flower to flower at night, its fur picking up pollen along the way. In Madagascar, the black and white ruffed lemur is the primary pollinator of the traveler's palm. It pries open the tough flower brackets with its hands to drink the nectar, getting its face and muzzle covered in pollen. From a distance, pollination seems to belong only to insects and birds. But mammals also play their part. Let the thought soften at the edges and fade. The scent of a flower can tell a pollinator if a visit is worthwhile. Many flowers change their scent after they have been successfully pollinated. They may stop producing a fragrance altogether, or the scent may change subtly. A pollinator like a bee can detect this change and will learn to avoid the already visited flowers, saving its energy for those that still offer a nectar reward. This also benefits the plant, as it directs pollinators to the unpollinated flowers, increasing its chances of reproduction. It's a quiet and efficient system of communication, a chemical message that says, "Thank you, I've already been helped." Along a steady path, these small efficiencies add up to a healthy ecosystem. Rest in the steady comfort of this moment. Bumblebee colonies have a short and focused life. Unlike honeybee hives that can last for years, a bumblebee colony is an annual affair. In the spring, a single queen who has hibernated all winter finds a nest site, often an abandoned mouse hole, and starts a new colony by herself. She lays eggs, forages for food, and cares for the first brood of worker bees. Once these workers mature, they take over the duties of foraging and colony maintenance, and the queen focuses solely on laying eggs. The colony grows throughout the summer, but in the late fall, all the workers and the old queen will die. Only the new queens born that year will mate and hibernate, each one ready to start the cycle anew the following spring. Over time, this rhythm of renewal continues. Set the idea down and feel the weight release. Mason bees are named for their use of mud. These gentle, solitary bees are excellent pollinators, especially for spring fruit trees like apples and cherries. A female mason bee builds her nest in a pre-existing cavity, like a hollow reed or a beetle burrow. She starts by building a wall of mud at the back of the tunnel. Then, she makes several trips to collect pollen and nectar, which she packs into the cell. She lays a single egg on this food provision and then seals the cell with another wall of mud. She repeats this process, creating a line of mud-walled cells until the tunnel is full. The final plug at the entrance is extra thick to protect her offspring from predators. In the gentle background, this careful construction takes place one load of mud at a time. Let your shoulders drop and the jaw unclench. The proboscis of a butterfly or moth is like a drinking straw. This long, coiled feeding tube is kept curled up under the insect's head when not in use. When it lands on a flower, muscles contract to unroll the proboscis, which it then inserts deep into the flower to sip nectar. The length of the proboscis varies greatly among species and is often co-evolved with the shape of their preferred flowers. The Morgan sphinx moth of Madagascar has a proboscis that can be up to 12 inches long, allowing it to feed from the incredibly long nectar spur of the star orchid. It's a perfect lock and key system, ensuring a private food source for the moth and a dedicated pollinator for the flower. Beneath the surface, these perfect fits are a hallmark of nature's design. Feel the calm gather around you again. Wind is also a form of pollination. Many important plants, including grasses like corn, wheat, and rice, as well as many trees like oaks and pines, are wind-pollinated. They don't need to attract animals, so their flowers are typically small, dull, and lack nectar or petals. Instead, they produce enormous quantities of very light, smooth pollen that can be carried for miles on the wind. They release this pollen into the air in the hopes that some of it will land on the feathery receptive stigmas of another plant of the same species. It's a game of chance, relying on sheer numbers to ensure success. With unhurried steps, the air itself becomes a carrier of life. Settle back into the soft pace of night. The alpine butterfly lives at the edge of possibility, high in mountain meadows, where the air is thin and the growing season is short, live some of the world's toughest pollinators. The alpine butterfly, like the Parnassia species, has adaptations to survive this harsh environment. They often have darker bodies to absorb more solar radiation, and are covered in fine hairs for insulation. They fly low to the ground to avoid strong winds and take advantage of the warmth radiating from the soil and rocks. Their life cycles are often slowed down, with some caterpillars taking several years to mature. Without any hurry, they complete their life's work in a brief window of summer sun. Allow the mind to idle in gentle space. Some flowers provide a warm place to rest. In cold environments, certain flowers can act as tiny warming shelters for insects. The Arctic poppy, for example, has a bowl-shaped flower that tracks the sun throughout the day, like a small satellite dish. This shape focuses the sun's rays on the center of the flower, raising the temperature inside by several degrees. Insects will gather inside these flowers to warm up, rest, and even mate. While they are there, they pollinate the flower. It is a mutually beneficial arrangement, offering heat in exchange for pollination services. Through a soft lens, we see a plant offering not just food, but comfort. Let the body be held by what supports you. Sweat bees are attracted to perspiration. This is a large and diverse family of bees, many of which have a beautiful metallic sheen, in shades of green, blue, or bronze. They are called sweat bees because some species have a habit of landing on human skin to lap up sweat, which provides them with moisture and salts. Most are solitary ground nesters and are important pollinators for a variety of wildflowers and crops. Despite their name and occasional habit of landing on people, they are typically very gentle and non-aggressive. As the night settles, we can appreciate the strange and varied needs that drive these small creatures. Allow the day to fall away now. The pollen of different plants can be different colors. While we often think of pollen as yellow, it comes in a wide array of hues. The pollen of a poppy can be dark purple or black. A mallow flower produces orange pollen, and the pollen from a fireweed plant is a distinct blue-green. When a bee returns to its hive, you can sometimes tell what kind of flowers it has been visiting just by the color of the pollen packed into its leg baskets. A bee with bright red pollen might have been visiting horse chestnut trees. This diversity of color adds another layer of hidden beauty to the world of pollination. In a calm rhythm, the bee carries a rainbow of dust back to its home. Rest in the quiet that follows. Nectar is more than just sugar water. The main component of nectar is sucrose, which provides a quick energy source for pollinators. But it also contains a complex mix of other substances. There are amino acids, the building blocks of protein, which are especially important for the growth of young bees. Nectar also contains minerals, vitamins, and even certain secondary compounds produced by the plant. Some of these compounds can have antimicrobial properties, or influence the pollinator's memory, helping it remember to return to that specific flower type. In this quiet corner, even a simple drop of nectar is a complex and carefully crafted offering. Let your breathing find a slower pace. The cuckoo bee leads a life of quiet infiltration. Similar to the cuckoo bird, a cuckoo bee does not build her own nest or provision her own young. Instead, a female cuckoo bee finds the nest of a host bee, often a bumblebee or a solitary bee species. She sneaks into the nest and lays her own egg inside one of the brood cells. The cuckoo bee larva then hatches and consumes the pollen ball that the host mother had gathered for her own offspring. The cuckoo bee is a kleptoparasite, a thief of resources. They are often shiny and less hairy than their hosts, as they don't need to collect pollen themselves. Under quiet skies, these small dramas of survival play out unnoticed. Feel the simple ease of being here. Some flowers trap their pollinators temporarily. The Dutchman's pipe, for example, has a curved tubular flower with inward-pointing hairs. A small fly, attracted by a fungal scent, can crawl in but cannot get back out. The fly is trapped inside for a day or so. During this time, the flower's male parts mature and dust the fly with pollen. Then, the hairs inside the flower wither, and the fly is able to escape, carrying the pollen with it to the next flower, where the process repeats. This temporary imprisonment ensures that the pollinator spends enough time in the flower to do its job properly. As the pattern repeats, these clever strategies ensure the continuation of the species. Hold only the calm and let the rest drift. The glasswing butterfly has transparent wings. In the rainforests of Central America, there is a butterfly whose wings look like they are made of delicate glass. The tissue between the veins of its wings lacks the colorful scales that most butterflies have, making them almost completely transparent. This serves as a form of camouflage, making it difficult for predators to spot them as they rest or fly through the dappled forest light. Like other butterflies, they are pollinators, feeding on the nectar of various rainforest flowers. Their near invisibility is a reminder of the quiet, almost magical ways the creatures adapt to their world. With steady breath, we can imagine this ghostly beauty fluttering through the trees. A simple truth for a quiet mind. Lizards can be pollinators on islands. On some islands where insects and birds are scarce, lizards have stepped in to fill the role of pollinator. Certain species of geckos and skinks have been observed visiting flowers to lick up nectar. As they do, their snouts and scales get dusted with pollen, which they then transfer to other flowers. This is most common for plants with hardy, robust flowers that can withstand the weight and movement of a reptile. It's a surprising partnership, demonstrating nature's flexibility in finding solutions to the challenge of pollination. In these gentle moments, the unexpected becomes part of the pattern. Let that thought dissolve into stillness. Many bees have a favorite type of flower. While some bees are generalists and will visit many different kinds of flowers, others are specialists. They may have a preference for flowers of a certain color, shape, or family. The squash bee, for example, is a specialist that almost exclusively pollinates pumpkins, squash, and other gourds. Its daily activity is synchronized with the flowers, which open early in the morning and close by midday. The bees emerge at dawn to mate and forage inside the large yellow blossoms. This specialization makes them incredibly efficient pollinators for these specific crops. Through the dimming light, we see how focused relationships can be powerful. There is no need to hold on, just let it pass. A bumblebee queen in hibernation is a miracle of stillness. After mating in the late fall, a new bumblebee queen finds a safe place to spend the winter, usually burrowing an inch or two into soft soil. Her heart rate slows to just a few beats per minute. Her breathing becomes almost undetectable. She enters a state of deep dormancy called diapause, living off the fat reserves stored in her body. She is a vessel of potential, holding the future of an entire colony within her sleeping form. For months she waits in the cold, dark earth. When the spring sun warms the soil, she will emerge and begin the cycle all over again. On a slower current, life pauses and waits for its moment. Feel the gentle pull of sleep draw nearer. Yuccas and yucca moths depend completely on each other. A female yucca moth emerges at night when the large, bell-shaped yucca flowers are open. She flies to a flower and gathers a ball of sticky pollen using her specialized mouthparts. Then, she flies to a different yucca plant, enters a flower, and deliberately packs the pollen onto the stigma, ensuring pollination. But before she leaves, she lays a few eggs in the flower's ovary. Her larvae will then feed on a small portion of the developing seeds. This is a rare example of intentional pollination, where the moth actively works to fertilize the plant that will feed her young. In this way, their futures are woven together. The mind can be as still as a windless meadow. Flowers can hear the sound of a bee's wings. Recent studies have shown that some flowers can actually sense the vibrations in the air caused by a nearby bee's wing beats. In response to this sound, the flower can temporarily sweeten its nectar, making it more appealing. This happens within just a few minutes of sensing the bee's approach. This ability helps the plant conserve energy by not producing extra sweet nectar all the time. It only offers the premium reward when a potential pollinator is auditions. The flower is not just a passive participant. It is listening, and it responds. Elsewhere in this picture, the world is filled with this silent, sensitive awareness. Hold the shape of that thought lightly and return to ease. The world has thousands of species of wild bees. There are over 20,000 known species of bees in the world, and the vast majority of them are not honeybees. They come in an astonishing variety of sizes, shapes, and colors. The smallest bee in the world, Perdita minima, is less than 2 millimeters long. The largest, Wallace's giant bee, can be as large as a human thumb. They live in deserts, forests, and mountaintops. Some are metallic green, others are striped blue, and some are fuzzy orange. Each one is adapted to a specific niche, pollinating the native plants of its region. In quieter hours, this vast, hidden diversity continues its quiet work. Let the body grow heavier as the mind stays simple. Plants avoid self-pollination in clever ways. For a plant, cross-pollination with another individual is usually better for genetic diversity. To avoid pollinating themselves, some plants have developed ingenious strategies. On an avocado tree, for example, a flower will open in the morning as a female, ready to receive pollen. It then closes and reopens the next afternoon as a male, ready to release pollen. Other plants have male and female parts that mature at different times, or they have a physical structure that places the stigma far away from the anthers. Some even have a genetic mechanism that prevents their own pollen from growing. With simple patience, plants have evolved these systems of careful timing. Let that settle like dust on a quiet floor. The tongue of a nectar-feeding bat is a marvel of adaptation. These bats need to drink large amounts of thin nectar very quickly. Their tongues have a unique feature to help with this. The tip is covered in fine, hair-like structures called papillae. When the bat extends its tongue into a flower, blood flows to these papillae, causing them to flare out and act like a tiny mop, soaking up the nectar. As the bat retracts its tongue, the papillae straighten out again, squeezing the nectar into its mouth. This all happens incredibly fast, allowing the bat to drink efficiently while hovering. Up close, this is a beautiful piece of biological machinery, perfected for its task. Return to the easy rhythm of your breath. Carrion flowers smell like rotting meat to attract flies. Not all flowers have a sweet and pleasant scent. Some plants, like the large and dramatic corpse flower or the smaller, more common carrion flower, have a different strategy. They emit a powerful odor of decay, which is highly attractive to flies and beetles that normally lay their eggs on dead animals. These insects are tricked into visiting the flower, thinking it's a source of food for their offspring. As they crawl around, they pick up and transfer pollen. The flowers are often a mottled, fleshy red or brown color, further enhancing the illusion of decaying flesh. From a distance it seems strange, but it is a highly effective way to attract a dedicated group of pollinators. Let the thought soften at the edges and fade. Bees can recognize human faces. Studies have shown that honeybees have the ability to learn and remember individual human faces. They can be trained to associate a particular face with a sugar-water reward. They do this by processing the different elements of a face, like eyebrows, lips, and hairline, as a single composite pattern. This is a surprising level of cognitive ability for an insect with a brain smaller than a grain of sand. While they may not see us in the same way we see ourselves, they can distinguish between us. Along a steady path, we continue to discover the hidden complexities of even the smallest minds. Rest in the steady comfort of this moment. Hummingbirds enter a state of torpor to survive the night. A hummingbird's metabolism is so fast that it is always just a few hours away from starving. To conserve energy during the cold night when it cannot feed, a hummingbird can enter a state of deep hibernation called torpor. Its heart rate, which can exceed 1,000 beats per minute during the day, slows to as low as 50. Its body temperature drops dramatically. It becomes cold and unresponsive, using only a tiny fraction of the energy it would normally need. As the sun rises and warms the air, the hummingbird can warm itself up in about 20 minutes and is ready to begin another day of frantic foraging. Over time, this rhythm of activity and rest allows for survival against the odds. Set the idea down and feel the weight release. The shaggy hairs of a bumblebee are not just for warmth. These dense, branched hairs are also electrostatically charged, making them exceptionally good at attracting pollen grains. They create a larger surface area for pollen to cling to. A bumblebee is often described as a flying powder puff for this reason. As it tumbles around in a flower, its fuzzy coat becomes completely covered in pollen. The bee then uses its legs to comb this pollen off its body and pack it into the pollen baskets on its hind legs. This fuzzy texture makes every movement within a flower an effective act of pollen gathering. In the gentle background, even a bee's coat is a specialized tool for its work. Let your shoulders drop and the jaw unclench. The structure of a beehive is a marvel of mathematics. Honeybees build their comb from beeswax, which they produce from glands on their abdomens. The comb is made of hexagonal cells, a shape that is incredibly strong and efficient. A hexagon is the most efficient shape for tiling a flat surface, as it uses the least amount of material to hold the most volume. This means the bees use the minimum amount of precious wax to create the maximum amount of storage space for honey and pollen. The cells are also built with a slight upward tilt, preventing the honey from running out. Beneath the surface, this perfect geometry emerges without a ruler or a plan. a collective and instinctual architecture. Feel the calm gather around you again. Orchid bees collect scents to create a perfume. In the tropical forests of the Americas, male orchid bees fly from flower to flower, not for nectar, but to collect fragrant compounds. They have special brushes on their front legs to scrape up oils and resins from orchids and other sources. They then transfer these compounds to a storage pouch on their hind legs. Each bee creates its own unique and complex perfume by mixing scents from dozens of different sources. They then use this personal fragrance to attract female bees during courtship displays. This endless quest for scent also makes them effective pollinators of the orchids they visit. With unhurried steps, the bee gathers its invisible treasures. Settle back into the soft pace of night. Dung beetles can be accidental pollinators. While they are most famous for their work with animal waste, some dung beetles also visit flowers. In certain ecosystems, particularly in the fynbos of South Africa, some plant species have evolved to mimic the scent and appearance of dung to attract these beetles. The beetles, thinking they have found a food source, will investigate the flower, and in the process, transfer pollen. They are not the most graceful or efficient of pollinators, but in environments where other pollinators may be scarce, they provide a valuable service. It's a reminder that in nature, connections are often made in the most unexpected of ways. Without any hurry, every creature finds its role. Allow the mind to idle in gentle space. Monarch caterpillars feed exclusively on milkweed plants. The survival of the monarch butterfly is tied to this one type of plant. Milkweed contains toxic compounds called cardenolides. The monarch caterpillar is able to eat the leaves and sequester these toxins in its own body. This makes the caterpillar, and later the adult butterfly, poisonous to many predators. A bird that eats a monarch will become sick, and it learns to avoid the butterfly's bright orange and black warning colors in the future. The milkweed is both a food source and a source of chemical defense, a cradle and a shield for the developing butterfly. Through a soft lens, we see how one life depends so fully on another. Let the body be held by what supports you. The life of a worker honeybee is defined by its age. A bee's job inside the hive changes as she gets older. For the first few days of her life, she is a cleaner, tidying up the brood cells. Then, she becomes a nurse bee, feeding the larvae. After that, she might take on roles like wax production, comb building, or guarding the hive entrance. Only in the last few weeks of her short 6-week life does she become a forager, leaving the hive to collect nectar and pollen. This progression of roles ensures that all the tasks of the colony are done by bees that are at the right developmental stage for the job. As the night settles, this orderly procession of duties keeps the hive running smoothly. Allow the day to fall away now. The largest flower in the world relies on flies for pollination. The Rafflesia arnoldii, found in the rainforests of Sumatra, can grow to be 3 feet across and weigh up to 15 pounds. It is a parasitic plant with no leaves, stems, or roots, living entirely within its host vine. When it blooms, it produces a powerful odor of rotting flesh to attract carrion flies. The flies are lured into the flower's center, where they pick up or deposit pollen. The flower only blooms for a few days, so this deception needs to work quickly. It is a strange and wonderful example of nature's extremes. In a calm rhythm, even the most unusual forms of life find a way to continue. Rest in the quiet that follows. Some flowers offer a resting place for weary bees. Male bees of many solitary species do not return to a nest at night. Instead, they find a sheltered place to rest, often inside a flower. They will crawl into a closed or half-closed blossom like that of a poppy or a squash and spend the night there. Sometimes, several male bees will share the same flower. The flower provides protection from the cool night air and from predators. In the morning, as the flower opens in the sun, the bees warm up and fly off to begin another day of searching for mates and sipping nectar. In this quiet corner, a flower becomes a temporary home. Let your breathing find a slower pace. Bees navigate using the sun, even on cloudy days. A bee has a remarkable ability to find its way back to the hive from miles away. Its primary compass is the sun. But even when the sun is hidden by clouds, a bee can still determine its position. This is because a bee's eyes can perceive the polarization of light in the sky. Patches of blue sky create a predictable pattern of polarized light, and the bee can use this pattern to figure out where the sun is. It's like having a built-in backup navigation system. Under quiet skies, these tiny navigators are always tracking their way home. Feel the simple ease of being here. The fly orchid perfectly mimics a female digger wasp. This is another master of deception from the orchid family. The flower has a fuzzy brown petal with bluish markings that looks almost identical to the abdomen of a specific species of female wasp. It also releases a chemical scent that is an exact match for the wasp's mating pheromones. Male wasps are irresistibly drawn to the flower, thinking they have found a mate. They land and try to copulate with the petal, and in the process, they either pick up or deposit the orchid's pollen packets. As the pattern repeats, the orchid achieves pollination without offering any reward at all. Hold only the calm, and let the rest drift. The proboscis of a housefly is a spongy pad. Unlike the straw-like mouthparts of a butterfly, a fly has a proboscis that ends in a soft sponge-like structure called a labellum. A fly cannot chew, so it releases saliva onto solid food to dissolve it, then sponges up the liquid. When visiting flowers for nectar, this spongy mouthpart is not as precise as a bee's tongue, but it can be effective. As the fly laps up nectar, its head and body can become dusted in pollen, which it then carries to the next flower. It is a less elegant but still functional method of pollination. With steady breath, we see the many different tools nature has invented for the same task. A simple truth for a quiet mind. The giant sphinx moth has a tongue longer than its body. This moth, found in the Americas, has one of the longest proboscises of any insect relative to its size. It can be more than 10 inches long. This allows it to feed on flowers with extremely long nectar tubes, like the ghost orchid. While hovering in front of the flower, it uncoils its incredible tongue and threads it down the narrow floral spur to reach the nectar at the bottom. This co-evolutionary relationship benefits both partners. The moth gets a private food source that no other insect can reach, and the orchid gets a highly specialized and reliable pollinator. In these gentle moments, we witness the beautiful results of a long, slow evolutionary conversation. Let that thought dissolve into stillness. Pollen can remain viable for a very long time. Pollen grains are designed to be tough. The outer shell, called the exine, is made of one of the most durable organic materials known, sporopollenin. This substance is resistant to decay, heat, and strong chemicals. It protects the genetic material inside the pollen grain as it travels from one flower to another. Because of this durability, pollen can survive for thousands, or even millions, of years when preserved in sediment layers or ice cores. This ancient pollen provides scientists with a priceless record of past vegetation and climates. Through the dimming light, these tiny, resilient capsules hold the stories of ancient worlds. There is no need to hold on, just let it pass. A mining bee excavates a branching tunnel underground. Most solitary bees are ground nesters, and mining bees are among the most common. A female will dig a main vertical tunnel in soil, often on a bare, sunny slope. From this main shaft, she will dig several short side tunnels. At the end of each side tunnel, she excavates a small chamber, or brood cell, She waterproofs the cell by lining it with a waxy secretion from a special gland. Then she provisions it with a ball of pollen and nectar and lays an egg. These bees often nest in large aggregations, with dozens or hundreds of individual nests in a small area, looking like a miniature city. On a slower current, the earth itself becomes a nursery. Feel the gentle pull of sleep draw nearer. The blue of a flower is not always made from pigment. For some flowers, like the marble berry, their brilliant, iridescent blue color is not created by a chemical pigment. Instead, it comes from the flower structure. The cells in the petals are arranged in very precise layered patterns that reflect light in a specific way, creating what is called structural color. This produces an intense shimmering blue that is much brighter than what most pigments can achieve. Bees are highly attracted to this vibrant blue. It is an example of nature using physics, not just chemistry, to create its dazzling palette. In this way, color can be born from form itself. The mind can be as still as a windless meadow. The honeybee's stinger is a modified ovipositor. The stinger of a female bee evolved from the organ she would have used to lay eggs. This is why male bees, or drones, do not have stingers. In honeybees, the stinger is barbed, which is why it gets lodged in the skin of a mammal and tears away from the bee's body. However, when stinging other insects with softer exoskeletons, a honeybee can often pull its stinger out intact. Most other bees and wasps have smooth stingers and can sting multiple times without harming themselves. The honeybee's barbed stinger is a powerful defense for the colony, but a final act for the individual bee. Elsewhere in this picture, sacrifice is sometimes woven into the design of life. You can breathe a little deeper and allow the thought to drift. The hummingbird hawk moth is a master of mimicry. This fascinating insect looks and flies so much like a hummingbird that it is often mistaken for one. It is a day-flying moth that hovers in front of flowers to drink nectar with its long proboscis. It even creates a similar humming sound with its rapidly beating wings. This is an example of convergent evolution, where two unrelated species develop similar traits to adapt to similar lifestyles. Found in Europe, Asia, and Africa, this moth is a joyful sight in any garden, a little piece of hummingbird magic on a different continent. In quieter hours, nature finds similar solutions to the challenge of flight and feeding. Hold the shape of that thought lightly and return to ease. Bees can use landmarks to find their way. In addition to using the sun and polarized light, bees also create a mental map of their surroundings. They learn the position of prominent landmarks like trees, rocks, or buildings. On their first few flights from the hive, young bees will perform a series of orientation flights, flying in wider and wider arcs, seemingly memorizing the local landscape. This allows them to find their way home, even when their other navigation systems are disrupted. They hold a picture of their world in their tiny minds, a map made of shapes and shadows. With simple patience, the bee learns the geography of its home. Let the body grow heavier as the mind stays simple. The way a flower holds its nectar ensures pollination. Flowers don't just offer up their nectar freely, the nectar is often held deep within the flower, forcing the pollinator to push its way inside to get it. As the animal does this, its head, back, or legs are strategically brushed with pollen. The position of the anthers, which hold the pollen, and the stigma, which receives it, is not random. It is precisely arranged to match the body of its target pollinator. A long, tubular flower deposits pollen on the head of a hummingbird, while a wide, flat flower dusts the back of a beetle. Up close, every flower is a perfectly designed machine for achieving contact. Let that settle like dust on a quiet floor. Some male bees sleep in flower petal beds. In the late afternoon, as the temperature drops, you might find male bees of certain species, like the long-horned bee, gathering together to sleep. They often choose a particular flower, clamping onto the stem or petal with their mandibles and tucking in for the night. Sometimes a single flower will host a small group of these sleeping males. They have no nest to return to, so they find these temporary shelters. Come morning, they warm themselves in the sun and fly off again. It's a gentle image, a small creature finding rest within the soft petals of a flower. From a distance, it looks like a moment of pure peace. Return to the easy rhythm of your breath. Pollinators support the foundation of our food systems. About 1 out of every 3 bites of food we eat exists because of the work of pollinators. They are essential for the production of most fruits, vegetables, and nuts. Apples, almonds, blueberries, cherries, avocados, and coffee are just a few of the crops that depend on animals, mostly bees, for pollination. Without these quiet workers, our diets would be far less diverse and nutritious. They are a silent and often invisible workforce, underpinning the health of both natural ecosystems and human agriculture. Along a steady path, these small actions create abundance. Let the thought soften at the edges and fade. A honeybee flies about 500 miles in her lifetime. In her short life as a forager, a worker bee will fly incredible distances to gather resources for her colony. On each foraging trip, she may travel several miles from the hive, visiting hundreds of flowers. It is estimated that a bee would need to fly about 55,000 miles and visit 2 million flowers to produce just 1 pound of honey. All of these individual trips add up. The work of the colony is the sum of millions of these small, determined journeys. Over time, drop by drop, the hive fills with the sweetness of 1,000 fields. Rest in the steady comfort of this moment. Bees see colors differently than we do. The human eye sees a spectrum based on red, green, and blue light. Bees, however, see a spectrum based on blue, green, and ultraviolet light. They cannot see the color red, which often appears as a dull gray or black to them. But they can see ultraviolet, a range of light that is invisible to us. This is why the ultraviolet nectar guides on flowers are so effective. A flower that looks plain yellow to us might have a brilliant ultraviolet bullseye in the center when seen through a bee's eyes. In the gentle background, the world is painted in colors we can only imagine. Set the idea down and feel the weight release. The shape of a moth's wings can be an act of camouflage. Many moths that rest during the day have wings that blend in perfectly with their surroundings. The wings of some species look exactly like a dead leaf, complete with veins and imperfections. Others look like a piece of tree bark or a patch of lichen. This crypsis helps them avoid being eaten by birds and other predators. Their stillness and their shape make them almost disappear. Then at night, these masters of disguise take to the wing, becoming active participants in the nocturnal world of pollination. Beneath the surface, stillness can be a strategy for survival. Let your shoulders drop and the jaw unclench. The geckos of Mauritius are a liquor of flowers. On the island of Mauritius in the Indian Ocean, the ornate day gecko plays a vital role in pollinating a rare endangered plant. The gecko is attracted to the plant's nectar and will lick it from the flowers. As it does, its snout becomes covered in the flower's bright blue pollen. The gecko then moves from plant to plant, transferring the pollen as it feeds. It is the primary, if not sole, pollinator for this particular species. It's another beautiful example of how, in isolated island ecosystems, unique and surprising pollination partnerships can evolve. With unhurried steps, life finds a way to connect. Feel the calm gather around you again. The pollen sac of an orchid is a sticky package. Orchids don't have loose, powdery pollen like many other flowers. Instead, their pollen is contained in a waxy, sticky package called a pollinia. When a bee or other insect visits the flower, this pollinia gets glued onto a specific part of its body, often its head or back. The glue is very strong. The insect then flies to another orchid of the same species, and the pollinia is transferred to the stigma of the new flower. This all-or-nothing approach ensures that a large amount of pollen is transferred in a single visit, making orchid pollination very efficient. Without any hurry, this little packet of life makes its journey. Settle back into the soft pace of night. The common wasp is a gardener's friend. Although their stings give them a bad reputation, common wasps, like yellow jackets, are beneficial in many ways. As adults, they feed on nectar and can be effective pollinators for certain plants. But more importantly, they are predators. A wasp colony requires a huge amount of protein to feed its developing larvae. The worker wasps hunt and capture other insects, including many common garden pests like caterpillars and aphids. They are a natural form of pest control, helping to keep insect populations in balance. Through a soft lens, we can see the useful role these misunderstood insects play. Allow the mind to idle in gentle space. Some bees specialize in just one plant family. This tight relationship is called oligolecty. An oligolectic bee is one that collects pollen from only one or a few related species of plants. The southeastern blueberry bee, for example, is a specialist on blueberries. Its emergence from its underground nest is timed perfectly with the blooming of the blueberry bushes. Because of this focus, it is an exceptionally good pollinator of that crop. While specialization can be risky if the host plant disappears, it also reduces competition and allows the bee to become an expert at finding and handling its preferred flower. As the night settles, these deep, focused bonds are a quiet strength in the ecosystem. Let the body be held by what supports you. Plants can have a backup plan for pollination. While many plants are adapted for a specific type of pollinator, they can often be visited by a range of secondary, less efficient pollinators. A flower designed for a bee might occasionally be visited by a fly or a beetle. This ecological generalization provides a form of insurance. If the primary pollinator has a bad year or disappears from the area, the plant can still achieve some level of pollination from other visitors. It's a strategy that builds resilience into the system, ensuring that life can continue even when things change. In a calm rhythm, nature creates safety nets and redundancies. Allow the day to fall away now. The wings of a butterfly are covered in tiny scales. A butterfly's wing is not just a thin membrane. It is covered in thousands of microscopic scales, arranged in overlapping rows like shingles on a roof. Each scale is a single color, and the patterns we see are created by the mosaic of these different colored scales. These scales are also responsible for the iridescent, shimmering colors on some butterflies, which are created by the way the scale's structure refracts light. The scales are very delicate and can rub off easily, which is why you should never touch a butterfly's wings. In this quiet corner, we find intricate design at a microscopic level. Rest in the quiet that follows. Bumblebees leave a scent mark on flowers they visit. When a bumblebee forages, it can leave behind a chemical footprint from glands in its feet. Other bees can detect this scent and know that the flower has been recently visited and is likely empty of nectar. This saves them the time and energy of landing on an unrewarding flower. This scent marking system makes the entire colony's foraging efforts more efficient. The scent fades after a while, so flowers that have had time to replenish their nectar will no longer carry the signal. Under quiet skies, the air is filled with these invisible messages, guiding the bees on their way. Let your breathing find a slower pace. The oldest known bee is preserved in amber. Scientists discovered a 100-million-year-old bee fossilized in a piece of amber from Myanmar. This ancient bee has features of both bees and wasps, providing a clue to how bees evolved from their wasp ancestors. It has the branched hairs characteristic of a pollen-collecting bee, but also retains some more primitive, wasp-like leg structures. This tiny specimen, trapped in golden resin for eons, gives us a glimpse into the early days of pollination, a time when flowering plants were just beginning to diversify across the earth. As the pattern repeats through deep time, the story of life unfolds. Feel the simple ease of being here. Many night-blooming flowers are pollinated by hawk moths. These large, powerful moths are the nighttime equivalent of hummingbirds. They are strong flyers and can hover in front of a flower to drink its nectar. Flowers that cater to them, like moonflowers and evening primrose, are typically white or pale, have a strong, sweet scent, and hold their nectar in long tubes. The moth unfurls its long proboscis to reach the reward, dusting its head with pollen in the process. They are a beautiful and often unseen force in the nocturnal garden. With steady breath, we can picture these moths moving like swift shadows in the moonlight. Hold only the calm and let the rest drift. Not all plants offer a reward for pollination. About 1/3 of all orchids use deception to get pollinated. Some, like the bee orchid, offer a false promise of mating. Others use food deception, mimicking the appearance of a nectar-producing flower but offering no reward. A pollinator is tricked into visiting, and after a few frustrating attempts it may learn to avoid that flower. But in the meantime, the orchid has likely achieved its goal of transferring its pollen. It is a risky but effective strategy that relies on fooling naive, newly emerged insects each season. In these gentle moments, we see the fine line between partnership and trickery. A simple truth for a quiet mind. The communal roosting of monarch butterflies is a breathtaking sight. In the winter, hundreds of millions of monarch butterflies gather in just a few specific groves of oyamel fir trees in the mountains of central Mexico. They cluster together on the branches and trunks of the trees in such vast numbers that the trees appear to be made of butterflies. This clustering helps them stay warm and conserve energy. On sunny days, they will take to the air in swirling clouds, but for most of the winter, they rest in a state of near hibernation, a city of silent folded wings, waiting for the spring. Through the dimming light, this vast, quiet gathering is a testament to the power of instinct. Let that thought dissolve into stillness. Some flowers make their pollen difficult to access. This is a way of selecting for a pollinator that is strong or smart enough to get the job done. The flowers of alfalfa, for instance, are tripped by bees. When a bee lands on the flower, its weight triggers a mechanism that snaps the reproductive parts forward, striking the bee on the head and dusting it with pollen. Honeybees dislike this and learn to avoid it, but other bees, like the alkali bee, are better adapted for it. This ensures the plant is visited by its most effective pollinator. On a slower current, these small challenges filter out all but the most suitable visitors. There is no need to hold on, just let it pass. The buzz of a bee is the sound of its flight muscles. A bee's wings beat incredibly fast, hundreds of times per second. This rapid movement is powered by large muscles in the bee's thorax. The buzzing sound we hear is not the wings hitting the air, but the vibration of these powerful muscles contracting and relaxing. The bee can change the pitch of the buzz by changing the frequency of these vibrations. And as we've learned, it can even vibrate these muscles without moving its wings to perform buzz pollination. As you rest, you can imagine this gentle, steady hum as the sound of pure, focused energy. Feel the gentle pull of sleep draw nearer. Rain can be a problem for pollinators. A bee's wings can get heavy when wet, making it difficult to fly. Heavy rain can also wash the nectar out of open flowers. For this reason, most bees and other flying insects will stop foraging and seek shelter when it rains. Honeybees will stay inside their hive. Solitary bees might retreat to their nests or hide under leaves. The flowers also seem to respond. Some, like the tulip, or close their petals during a storm to protect their pollen and nectar from being washed away. In this way, the whole system takes a quiet pause, waiting for the sun to return. The mind can be as still as a windless meadow. Leafcutter ants are not pollinators, but farmers. While we've seen that some ants can be pollinators, the famous leafcutter ants are not. They cut pieces of leaves, but they don't eat them. Instead, they carry them back to their vast underground nests and use them as a substrate to grow a special kind of fungus. It is this fungus that the ants eat. They are farmers, tending their fungal gardens with great care. It's a different, but equally fascinating symbiotic relationship. A reminder that the world of insects is full of complex social structures and surprising ways of life. Elsewhere in this picture, ants are tending their hidden gardens in the dark. You can breathe a little deeper and allow the thought to drift. Some flowers bloom for only a single day. The daily, for example, opens a new flower at sunrise that will wither and die by sunset. The plant produces a long succession of these single-day flowers, ensuring it is in bloom for many weeks. This ephemeral nature means that each flower has only a short window to be pollinated. All of its color, scent, and nectar production is focused into those few hours of sunlight. It is a strategy of concentrated effort, a brief but beautiful offering to the pollinators that visit it. In quieter hours, we can appreciate the beauty in things that are fleeting. Hold the shape of that thought lightly and return to ease. The world of pollinators is a delicate web of connections. Each creature, from the smallest fly to the largest bat, plays a part in this intricate dance. The shape of a flower is a response to the shape of a bird's beak. The scent of a blossom is a message written on the wind for a moth. The timing of a bee's emergence is synchronized with the blooming of its favorite plant. All of these relationships have been built over millions of years of coevolution. They form a system of mutual dependence that is both resilient and fragile. With simple patience, we can see the threads that tie all of these lives together. Let the body grow heavier as the mind stays simple. The quiet hum of a garden is the sound of cooperation. When we listen closely on a warm day, we can hear the gentle sounds of pollination, the low buzz of a bumblebee, the higher hum of a honeybee, the faint flutter of a butterfly's wings. It is the sound of thousands of tiny messengers at work, each one pursuing its own survival, but in doing so, contributing to the survival of the entire community. They are the threads that stitch the ecosystem together, ensuring that flowers are fertilized, fruits grow, and seeds are made. It's a peaceful sound, the sound of life creating more life. Up close, a simple garden is a universe of collaboration. Let that settle like dust on a quiet floor. And so, our journey through the world of pollinators comes to a soft close. We have drifted through sunlit fields and moonlit gardens. We have witnessed the quiet work of bees, the silent flight of butterflies, and the surprising diligence of beetles and bats. Everywhere, in ways both simple and complex, this gentle work continues. As you rest now, this intricate dance goes on. A moth finds a night-blooming flower. A hibernating queen waits beneath the soil for spring. The world is stitched together by these small, tireless efforts. You too are a part of this interconnected world held in its steady, life-giving rhythm. There is nothing more to do now, nothing more to learn. Just allow yourself to float on the gentle current of your breath and drift into a deep and peaceful sleep. Good night.